Go ahead.
Thank you, Janessa, and thank you, Meredith. That was a great breakout session. I think we can all agree it took a weird left turn. It's nice to see so many familiar faces. We do hope you're enjoying what you have gained so far. I know I've learned a lot today, although I know so little, so that's just me. Please share any thoughts, photos, ideas on social media, and be sure to tag us at IFMA Boston using the hashtag FMForward 2021. We would also, again, like to thank Corporate Care, 4 Point Project Management, Margulies Peruzzi, Timberline Construction, VBA, and Cost Managers for their help in underwriting this year's conference. Same drill as earlier today. We're going to have a breakout session with moderators from our exhibiting companies, volunteers, and board members. But if you find yourself in a room without a moderator, please just elect one. Now on with the show. This afternoon, we are joined by my board member, Andrew Delpreet, Senior Manager of Workplace Operations at Liberty Mutual, Jake Schneider, Workplace Operations Manager at Liberty Mutual, and Josh Hurwitz, Customer Success Manager at Clockworks Analytics. You can find all their bios in the swag box. Take it away, gentlemen.
Awesome. Thank you, Joy.
Welcome.
Hey, everybody. Hopefully you guys are energized from the TikTok dance you just came from, and thank you for joining us here this afternoon. And what we want to talk about today is just how Liberty Mutual effectively implemented Fault Detection and Diagnostics, or FDD. The presenters for today are myself. I'm Andrew Delpreet, the Senior Manager, Workplace Operations at Liberty Mutual.
I'm Jake Schneider, Workplace Operations Manager at Liberty Mutual.
And Josh Hurwitz, Customer Success Manager at Clockworks Analytics.
So what we want to go through, high level, we'll try to keep it exciting, is what is fault detection and diagnostics, so FDD, and the difference between the building automation system, so that's BAS. And just out of curiosity, either if you guys have your white paddles, or even in the chat box, is everyone familiar with FDD? Ever heard of it before? Simple yes or no. Question marks. Let's see. No, that's good. No, thank you, Joy. No, excellent. All right, no, so this is good. So that's part of it. So what I would definitely want to do before we jump into the two FDDs, kind of level set, and make sure everyone understands what it is. We'll talk about our vetting process. It took us probably a good year and a half to get to the point of bringing Clockworks Analytics on board. And then also to talk about the guided decisions based on its energy, comfort, and maintenance, and you can make data-driven decisions. So why did Liberty Mutual pursue fault detection and diagnostics? In 2015 is really when Liberty Mutual started the energy journey, and it was really the facilities department that took the initiative to understand that this is the way. We were probably a little bit behind the 8 ball, but we wanted to do something, reduce carbon emissions, which is a big one now, but also reduce our energy use. So we started to essentially bring everything to baseline, do commissioning, get everything up to snuff the way it's supposed to be operating. And it wasn't just at the air handling unit level. As an example, we wanted to go much further downstream at the individual box level. So were the dampers, was it open, was it closed, was it balanced the way it was supposed to be, is it getting too much air, because all those things go into kind of the energy, so to speak. So when we finally got to that point years later, so it took us probably about 5 years to get there, we got to the point to say what's next. And we wanted some form of continuous commissioning. So it's not a snapshot of every year we'll do retro commissioning. We wanted it to be almost continuous, 24/7. So we're always running at peak performance. So Clockworks was one of the people or companies that was able to help us continue to improve our proactive and preventive maintenance program. They were check the box, so to speak, to continue to reduce our energy consumption, especially in Boston. I know we have some time, but 2050 they want us to be carbon neutral, and I think Clockworks is a company that can help us get there. We wanted to understand the cost of inefficiencies. So we go and do stuff if it comes into an alarm through the building automation system, but there was no real way to track those inefficiencies. Being essentially home office and having our staff, owner and representatives, we wanted to identify root causes of issues. So we didn't want to be the fireman. We wanted to really, as issues come up, we wanted to understand the root cause and eliminate them. So then we have opportunity to focus on other areas. We wanted to prioritize issues to take action. So looking at the registration list, there are other facility managers on here, and you guys know how your day is. It's 5 steps forward, 10 steps back. You try to plan the work and work the plan, but sometimes it's easier said than done with all the craziness that it's expect the unexpected is kind of what we do. So we wanted to prioritize issues to take the action on, and then at the end of the day, have the visibility for data-driven decisions. So let's talk about fault detection and diagnostics. So I'm going to level set here. So most buildings, whether it be 2 stories or a couple million square foot buildings, they have some shape or form of a building automation system. Ours is very customizable. We have the graphics, we get the alarms. So high level here, this is I'll call it the status quo state. So it's the building automation system. So on the left where it says data, we're going to go through an example here where you have a fan status, which is on, and you can see a discharge temperature set point at 60. So the discharge temp is showing 73, so you get an alarm. It's high discharge air temperature. So when you get over towards the investigation, slide across the screen to the right, you have your engineering manager or building systems tech sitting on the computer drinking his coffee, asking all these questions. When did this issue start? How severe is the issue? Are there other issues present? What is the root cause? And there's really no action to send to the technician. There's a question mark. So as we go into the next layer, which gets into the fault detection, we're starting to get little bit of a better understanding of the full picture. So same example where you have a discharge temp set point of 60. However, the discharge temp is 73. So now you're getting the fault. It's telling you you have a high discharge air temperature. It's also showing you a little bit further as you drive down, it's giving you another fault where it shows that the outside air temperature is 70 degrees and your return air temp is 78. So when you see a mixed air temperature of 82, it's going to indicate you have a fault with a mixed air temperature. It's a sensor error. And then depending on how you guys operate and run your buildings, in the shoulder months, especially in New England, you can utilize the outside air. So you can operate on free cooling or the economizer mode. So the fault is making you aware of, hey, your chilled water valve is at 75% open. However, at 70 degrees, again, depending on how you operate and manage your building, your outside air damper is only open 20%. So in reality, especially at our building, the way we operate, 70 degrees is kind of that sweet spot for us. Anything under, it's free cooling, where our outside air dampers are open 100%, and we're pretty much not even starting a chiller. With the fault detection, though, now you have a little bit more of the answers to the investigation. So you kind of check the box. When did the issue start? You can get it. How severe is the issue? You have that information. Are other issues present? Yes. But you're not getting to the root cause, that systemic approach of what to go do, what to look for, and giving the technician an action to go and look. So now let's incorporate the next layer is the fault detection and the diagnostics. So now we have that exact same example, but what the fault detection diagnostic software does for you, it gives you the analysis, it identifies the issues, but it also gives you opportunities if you're willing to pursue them. So here the identified issue is high discharge air temperature, mixed air temperature sensor error, and the economizer failure. So all actionable items that you can have the technician go and take a look at. The recommended steps talks about a PID adjustment. For the engineers in the room, it's not the either piping and instrumentation diagram, or it's not the process and instrumentation diagram if you're in manufacturing. This is more of an algorithm. It's a proportional integral derivative that kind of goes on behind the scenes, but it gives you the recommended steps and tells you what to do in regards to the calibration of the sensors, the economizer control, and sequence changes. But then it also gives you the cost impact. And Jake was going to talk in a couple minutes about the onboarding and how it gets that cost per day, because based on where we are and cost of electricity and the rated horsepower of our equipment, it can give you a per day cost. And $300 per day doesn't seem like much, but if you let that go for a week and then a month and then over a year, it really adds up. So when you get into the diagnostics piece, you're answering all the questions. You have the engineering manager or technician looking at his computer. All the questions are being answered. And now you have the technician going out to the field and he has a list of issues that he can identify and help troubleshoot.
So I'll be going over the process of selecting the FDD company and also the onboarding process. So when we decided we wanted to move forward with fault detection diagnostics, we had a checklist of things that we wanted to make sure the companies could provide. And the first one being it needed to be compatible with our building automation system. Sometimes fault detection companies don't work well with certain building automation systems. The second thing we wanted to look at is we wanted to make sure the system didn't take control of our BAS. We wanted to have full control of our building automation system and not allow anyone else to control it. And that also plays into like security. We wanted to make sure it was only information going out and not no one could get in. So that played into it as well. We wanted to make sure we could customize rules for faults. So if we had chill beams, we have chill beams in our building, and we made rules to diagnose when the valve serving those chill beams was having an issue, and make sure we didn't have simultaneously heating and cooling in the space. So we were able to add that. We also didn't want just an analytics company. We wanted a company that could do the analytics, but also understood building systems. That was very important to us when selecting a partner. And we wanted the ability to add other buildings in the future and add equipment easily. Like if we added a new boiler, we could add that quickly and efficiently. And then we also wanted to make sure that the reporting met our requirements. And if we wanted to add anything, we had the ability to do that. And once we did our research, found companies, we interviewed them, and then ultimately selected Clockworks Analytics. And at the time, there were KGS buildings, if you guys aren't familiar with Clockworks. So for the onboarding process, I work closely with an onboarding manager at Clockworks Analytics. This onboarding manager dealt with everything. They were my main point of contact. And so what we did to build the fault detection was I sent them all our utility rates, including electrical, gas, water, all that sort of stuff. I also sent them drawings of the building so they could understand the layout of the building, equipment schedules, sequences of operation, anything having to do with the buildings, we pretty much sent to them, and they took all that data and put it into the fault detection system. Overall, we added 10,700 points, and they're monitored every 5 minutes, infinite trending on items. So let's say we notice an issue, we can look back and see when it went wrong and download trends if we need to. We also went through a test period and reviewed any findings with the team. Unfortunately, with COVID, we we started the testing process when our building was unoccupied, but we still were able to test it and find some issues. Clockworks was able to make any changes we needed regarding points. If we weren't reading the correct ones, they were able to fix it right away. And when they do that, they're able to redo the analytics going back. So if you have a fault and it's saying it costs you this amount of money and you change the parameters, it will go back and correct that in the past. So for breakouts session 1, we're asking what is your status quo? So we want to know what are your existing resources and vendor relationships to fix issues with your building automation system, and how do you prioritize alarms?
All right, are we ready to go? Excellent. I'm going to open all the rooms. Again, in theory, you should all have a moderator. If not, just select someone. All right, there you go. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Nice.
And then I will send a message into them. And then how long? We didn't really tell them how long we were going to put them in there.
Yeah, we said 10. I think it might be a little heavy if they're not all facility managers. So let me see, 418. We could
There's
probably. Oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
there's like, in essence, well, some rooms have a bajillion because you know, there's like 5 or 6 in each room. So
Yep.
So first,
We had 10, but I mean, if we need to reduce it we can balance it based on time.
Yeah, how are you? Where are you? Where you thought you wanted to be?
I feel like we're pretty good. Josh, what do you think? I know you're coming up next.
Yeah,
10
if
minutes.
anything, I think we'll be on the shorter end. I don't anticipate the back end slides to be all that much in terms of length. I guess we're
Agreed.
17 minutes in so far, so
Mhm.
we're pacing about as we did in our dry runs, and that ended up working good on time.
Perfect.
All right, so I'm going to say 10 minutes.
Cool. Can I jump into one of these groups too and get them going and see what they're saying?
Yeah, you can. Did I make you? Let me make you a co-host, and then you can join, and then you can keep popping in. You can open up. So here, 1 second.
I could stay in the one room too if you want to make it easier.
No, you'll go. You can do whatever. Here,
cool.
Go to gallery. I'm going to make you a co-host, and then that way you can get them all going. You know, like you could go in and
round them up.
Then you just open breakouts, and then you say, I want to join this one, and I want to join this one. So you can open breakouts and decide which one you want to go into, or you can go into room 1. There's
one.
Room 1 is where you're automatically going to go.
Yep.
You do.
Perfect. I'll click in, see what the guys are talking about.
And I'm going to set a timer so that
probably like 7 minutes now.
Yeah,
8 minutes. Cool.
I'll set it for 7, and then I'll give them a 2-minute warning.
Cool. Sounds good. Thank you. Hang tight. Doing the Zoom wave.
Oh, I'm going to pause the recording. And gentlemen, back to you.
Awesome. Well, welcome back, everyone. I hope that those breakout sessions were useful and got you in the right frame of mind for the next portion of this presentation. So firstly, kind of pulling back and looking at this from a higher level, what is the fundamental challenge that FTD is solving for? And a common anecdote that we hear from building operators are that they're drowning in data, but lacking valuable insights. And this is really common as people are overloaded with alarms from their BAS, and they're trying to figure out what is the best way to move forward with this. And the downstream impacts of that are really seen with issues across 3 main buckets: workflow and process, occupant comfort, and asset management. And there's been a number of studies that have been done across these three criteria, and they really speak to the larger problem with running buildings just off alarms and not having those deeper insights into how the building is operating and what the root cause of issues are. Pacific Northwest National Labs put out a really interesting study saying that over 55% of building maintenance tasks are reactive. And what this really means is that the downstream alarms are really what is triggering action, not issues with the machine before something actually goes wrong and causes comfort complaints down the road. And furthermore on that, over 40% of workers note that they're dissatisfied with comfort in their spaces. So when we're sitting in our offices, especially as we look to reopen commercial real estate after COVID and really understand what are our occupants looking for, both in terms of air quality and overall environmental comfort, being able to get out in front of those issues rather than waiting for the CEO to call saying that his office is 78 degrees before we get a tech out in the field to look at issues. And the third, 80% of equipment is failing before age-related reasons. So meaning the manufacturer says a piece of equipment is supposed to last for 10 years. In most cases, we're seeing that that equipment is failing before its actual end of life. So with all that in mind, how does FDD start fixing some of these problems? From a connectivity standpoint, the Clockworks platform is installed through a software gateway. So there's no hardware. We're able to immediately pull that data into the cloud in 5-minute intervals. And each night, Clockworks is running analytics on that building automation data that is able to give actionable insights for building operators to look at the following morning. From a data model perspective, there's a lot of inputs, and Jake spoke to some of these when he was talking about the onboarding process. But what happens is the client provides all of this information, BMS data, control sequences, equipment schedules, and so on, so we can really understand how the equipment is working. And Clockworks is able to map all of these into a digestible format. So we're really able to see how is this equipment working in a holistic sense, rather than looking at one small piece of the equipment. We're seeing a holistic view of that entire system so that we can understand the root cause and also accurately quantify the savings that are attached to that. So the ultimate output of this is a number of reporting metrics that Clockworks provides, including a top diagnostic list, calculated cost savings, both on previously what does this cost you, and then forward-looking projections on if you take action on this, here's the annual savings associated with those actions. And lastly, building scores. So you can compare an entire portfolio and really understand how our individual buildings and pieces of equipment performing in comparison to their peers. So we can allocate resources to go after the most pressing issues on your particular site. So lastly, what are the diagnostic outputs that come from Clockworks? And there's many, and we'll focus on 3 main ones here. The first of which, and this is really the bread and butter of the application, is the diagnostics module. So each morning, whether you're a building operator, a technician, at all different levels of the organization, you can log in and see across a few different criteria, what are the most pressing issues that Clockworks identified over the past day, week, or month? And diagnostics are run on those different time intervals because there's some things that you may be able to pick up from 24 hours of data. Other issues you may need a week or even a month's worth of data to really understand what's happening. So we allow our operators to look at all 3 of these time intervals to really get a deeper understanding of how our building is operating, what's the root cause, and what should we send techs out to fix immediately, and what can be set on the back burner to be handled later. Furthermore, and this was something that was born this past spring out of reaction to COVID and trying to help our building operators run safe IAQ related buildings, is IAQ dashboarding. So being able to see where is airflow restricted, where do we have stuck dampers, where is relative humidity outside of the recommended 40 to 60 degrees threshold. And that really helps to drive action. So if you're looking to open your facility, you can very easily say, okay, here are my 5 stuck dampers. You're able to send a tech out, deal with all of those at once. They know what they're looking for. They have the right tools, and they've been able to see the raw data, so they really understand what's going on. rather than playing whack-a-mole and potentially having an unsafe space when you re-enter the workspace. The third piece of this is the task module. So you have all of this great information. What do you do with it next? And what the task module does, it really mirrors a work order system, and it can be tied into your existing work order system, but it allows you to assign work out to techs in the field. And that's where the annual avoidable cost associated with each of these diagnostics is calculated. So when you say, here's a diagnostic that we've identified, you want to send somebody out into the field, you're able to send them out not only with the root cause in a list of suggested actions they should take, but you're also able to show them, what is this issue actually worth? And what is it costing the company to be running in this way? So not only are they able to go out, fix the issue, be able to look back and make sure that the issue is actually fixed, there's a little bit of a feel good and understanding. I'm saving my organization this amount of money or this amount of energy. Here's why the actions I'm taking are important and should be prioritized. And ultimately, I think it raises the level of all the techs as they, in time, learn root causes and understand how they're no longer putting Band-Aids on fixes. We're getting to the root cause and truly fixing issues on the site so that we're running a proactive, clean building.
Just to add to that real quick, Josh, too, before we go into the breakout session. So the screen to the top right, I know it's a little bit smaller, but when you get over to the right, it's actually, it's ECM. There's 3 different columns, and it looks like it's a yellow, red, and blue. That's where you're starting to get your prioritization, and it's either based on energy. Is it the comfort, or is it maintenance? So easier said than done. I mean, depending on what type of facility you have, you may be focusing on maintenance. However, someone within the company may think the priority is something different. So you can easily sort by what you're trying to prioritize, which is pretty neat.
Awesome. So for breakout session 2, there's 2 main questions that we want to pose. Firstly, how effective are maintenance actions for solving problems and avoiding repeat calls? So as I mentioned earlier, are you just putting a Band-Aid over the fix so that the alarm goes away in your BAS? Are you actually fixing the root cause of the problem? And then secondly, kind of to piggyback on that, what are the training opportunities that can be taken, and how can you raise the level of all your techs by helping them to better understand not only how to make alarms go away, but how to truly fix problems in the field, and then go back and do M&V on those afterwards to make sure that the actions taken actually fix the issue.
Excellent. Are we ready to go?
Let's do it.
All righty. Go for it. I will send the questions. And let me pause and go forth, gentlemen.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate the breakout sessions, especially on the very heavy, I guess, technical FM side of things. But so to really summarize and kind of talk about the future state, and actually I did jump into one of the breakout rooms too, and so I just wanted to add some context on one of the comments that were made. But on how will Liberty Mutual transform the way they perform building maintenance, and we're almost at that point where we're incorporating in the Internet of Things. We're kind of peeling back that additional layer and getting into the predictive analytics. And that's, I mean, when you hear these sustainability goals, both for, we're specific for the city of Boston, depending on where you are, there's different ones for your states, but also for Liberty Mutual as a whole, and the whole ESG and environmental social governance and reducing greenhouse gases and carbon emissions. I think this is one way to help do that. So you're trying to identify and find the problem prior to it even ringing in to your building automation system. And it can be simple things such as, hey, one of your technicians they were working on a system, they got sidetracked, they left it in override, and the next day we're coming in, we're looking at Clockworks Analytics, and it's saying, hey, you're operating this fan outside its normal scheduled hours. And we, as a team, look and we say, oh, that's right too. I was working on that yesterday. I forgot to put it into automatic. So it's little things like that that make a difference, because at the end of the day, depending on what size that fan or motor or pump was, that's energy, and it's wasted energy when no one's in the building. And how will Liberty Mutual leverage FDD for reopening? So part of it is, again, part of the continuous commissioning or continuous improvement was the indoor air quality piece that they added. So that's going to be fun if we ever incorporate like a branding or digital signage. If we can tell people, hey, we monitor indoor air quality 24/7. We don't have to go into details, but from an employee experience standpoint, they may think that's really, really cool. And that's just the way we're operating the buildings. We're trying to, again, to solve problems. There was one comment that was actually pretty good. Someone said it's really interesting to hear that you guys have the resources to dig into this and kind of invest to do it. I will say the onboarding team was phenomenal, but it took I'm going to say greater than 3 months of a push of continuous back and forth. And we did have our controls vendor on a couple of those meetings to get really down into the technical stuff of how this was going to happen. But at the end of the day, it's kind of it's pay for what you get type thing. We put in the effort, we put in the due diligence, and we're very confident with the product, the end result of it, because whether you go down, up, or up, down, we kind of dotted the I's, crossed the T's, and it's very thorough. So the way we look at it is, even though it's lean right now with not many folks in the building, it's still identifying issues, and it's going to be paying for itself every year, as long as we take that action and actually solve the problem. How will Liberty Mutual leverage FDD? Again, that's just part of the reopening, as part of return to office, indoor air quality, and the way we want to operate the building. The vision that we have for expanded use across the portfolio, we're pretty much piloting this, and we have additional larger buildings that I think could benefit from this as well. So what we'd like to do is when people do return to office, we're running at a very unique schedule right now, separate from what we've ever ran before in the company's history. So probably 30, 60 days prior to people return to office, we are going to put this system through the test with our entire team to then really start to pump out those analytics, run the reports, see what we're saving, see how we can share those metrics or key performance indicators with other members of our team, and then try to expand it across the portfolio. And then at the end of the day, it's back to the data-driven maintenance decisions, where we can prioritize based on what we're trying to look at. And it's the maintenance decisions, but it's also there's definitely a knowledge gap within our field. And the way, I know we're giving you guys a high level of what this entails, but when you start to look into the diagnostics, every individual diagnostics gives you a very systemic approach on what to look for and how to look for it. And whether you're green, you're seasoned, you're 10 years, 15, 20 years in the industry, there's going to be a consistency on how you troubleshoot and try to solve problems. So we're really looking forward to that as an opportunity, as it's been a struggle in trying to hire some of the trades. With that being said, that's how we implemented fault detection and diagnostics, especially some of it during the pandemic. But does anybody have any questions?
Who's your controls vendor, Dan?
Yeah, we have Siemens Building Technologies.
What platform are you guys using?
We have, so we're in the middle right now. We had Insight. We just migrated over to Desigo. We're literally commissioning Desigo as we speak. And that was part of it's kind of like Microsoft. It's crazy how the technology drives everything we need to upgrade. But the Insight platform, I think, went sunset. It was the end of 2021 or 2022 with the security patches. That pretty much said you're on your own until you upgrade to, I think it was Windows 10.
Right. It was. Thank you.
So Andrew, do you have plans to increase maintenance windows if there's no fault detection, or are you going to push the limits? Or are you going to still maintain on your current schedules?
Yep. No, it's a great question, Steve. It kind of gets to is it time-based versus kind of value-based? So if we're not running equipment as frequently, we can trend that data. instead of say you're doing a quarterly maintenance and let's say it's you're greasing the bearings, if you're doing runtime data and saying, hey, it's only run for 18 hours in the last quarter, it's the frequency may change a little bit, because if you're over greasing, now you're creating a different problem. So it's more of you're switching from like a time based to what's actually operating. Does that make sense?
Yes, thanks.
No problem. Good question. Let's see, anybody else? Excellent.
So quiet. Okay, so I'll turn it over to Joy, but just remind everyone that for the FMs, might not have specific questions for them, but still might want to still talk about this topic and so forth with them and so forth. FM overtime, separate room. Go ahead, Joy.
Thank you, Janessa. I will reiterate that at the end. And thank you, Andrew, Jake, and Josh. That was a lot to take in. And precisely why I am in sales and not in facilities, because right over my head. But Steve, luckily from Liberty Mutual, was in my breakout room, and he was able to dissect the questions for me and explain them to me, because I did not understand them. But it was a great session and everybody learned a lot. So thank you for your amazing insight. And that was an amazing first day at the conference. So everyone that participated and did a session, we really appreciate it. As with all the sessions, just as Janessa said, we have FM overtime. So if you need the Zoom link, please email Janessa. And for everyone else, we look forward to seeing you bright and early tomorrow for our geospatial technology talk with Phillips Academy. Have a great night and thanks again.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everyone.